What's up, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of Indians Insider here in Season 2 of the Indians franchise in MLB 15, the show. Indians Insider is going to be a new mini-series. Every month of this franchise, I will be going over stats and different moves that were made throughout the Indians organization, as well as highlighting certain performances of prospects, among other things. But today we're here in spring training, and we're going to be covering the Indians' two most notable offseason acquisitions, Matt Latos and Dallas Keuchel. We're going to be going into detail about each of these pitchers. Now, the thing with these two pitchers that they both have in common is they are more finesse pitchers than power pitchers. They go against the mold of what the Indians did last year. They had four power pitchers throughout their rotation, not their lineup, in Corey Kluber, Carlos Carrasco, Danny Salazar, and Trevor Bauer. Carlos Carrasco was the pitcher that went to Houston in the Dallas Keuchel trade. He is a top-of-the-line starter in this league, and it was tough to part with him. As if you're the Cleveland Indians, you don't want to lose a guy who just won you 17 games last year. That's good. That your team is going to take a little bit of a hit from that, because obviously, pitcher wins aren't the most prevalent stat in judging a pitcher, but they are still pretty noteworthy and worth looking at. They're not to be ignored. That's the point I'm trying to make here. So anytime you trade a 17-win guy, you got to wonder if your team's going to be able to perform in his absence. But, we'll talk about Keuchel later on in this episode. First, we're going to talk about Matt Latos. Now, Matt Latos pitched for the San Diego Padres, the Cincinnati Reds, and recently the Miami Marlins in his career. He spent 2015 with the Marlins, and he went 15-8 and had over 100 strikeouts and a sub-4 ERA on the season. Very solid numbers. Not what Latos is capable of. He's capable of much more. I think in everyone's mind, they know what Latos is capable of, and it is a lot more than just what he put up with the Marlins last year. He is a stud. He has had many good seasons for the Cincinnati Reds, and he was pretty much a staff ace prior to his trade. You can put him, you can put Johnny Cueto in that conversation, but everyone knows that those two are the top of the line guys for the Reds. They made the playoffs a few years with those two at the top of their rotation, a couple of years actually. So we'll discuss Matt Latos first. Now, Matt Latos is, again, a finesse pitcher, as we discussed before. He's not going to overpower you with this stuff. He throws a four-seamer, a slider, a changeup, and then secondary pitches are his curveball and his two-seam fastball, a five-pitch arsenal, and he mixes his pitches very well. He does use his fastball to start out the game, but as he goes through the order, he tends to use more of his breaking balls. And he's not going to hit, overpower you with his stuff. He's a finesse pitcher. His fastballs don't reach very high. They reach very mid to low 90s, more on the low end, and his sliders in the high 80s, and obviously his changeup and curveball are in the 70s. But what you can expect from Matt Latos is a lot of, control, painting corners in the zone, a lot of good command, and not a lot of velocity, but you're going to get, the ball's going to go where you want it to go in the strike zone, and he's going to hit his spots, and he's going to deliver from that standpoint. Now, you're not going to see obscene strikeout totals, but you can still expect a good strikeout to walk ratio, as Matt Latos is not going to issue many free passes, as someone like Danny Salazar or Trevor Bauer in the rotation might. You get your more power pitchers, you get the guys who are going for strikeouts, and they end up issuing more walks. But Latos kind of goes against that mold, as he is going to, prevent walks, prevent extra runners. You can expect anywhere in a 5 to 6 strikeout per 9 rate, and probably a 2 or below walk per 9 rate. Or let me actually up that strikeout per 9 rate. I'm going to go with somewhere in 6 to 7, not 5 to 6. You're going to get a good amount of strikeouts. You're not going to get an overwhelming amount. Say he goes 4 innings or 5 innings, you're going to get, 3 strikeouts maybe out of him. So again, not a strikeout pitcher, but he is going to provide solid numbers because he is a ground ball guy. He gets a good ground ball rate, and he hits his spots very well, and he's not going to give up a lot of hard contact. So you can expect a pretty good season out of Latos. If I was to make a prediction about his season numbers, I'd say somewhere around 16-10 with about 150 strikeouts and a 3.2 ERA. That ERA would be probably below 3. based on his peripherals and his past performance, but the Indians' defense is still rather unproven. We do have pretty weak defenders in the lineup still in terms of the outfield, so you might end up seeing a little bit of kind of rough showing from out there because of that right field spot with David Murphy. And Michael Brantley's not the greatest defender in the world. He's above average, but he's not the greatest defender in the world. And, Giovanni Urshela is still rather unproven. And then when you get Kevin Franzen in there, the defense obviously takes a hit. And Jason Kipnis has not been a consistent defender throughout his career either. So there are definitely plenty of question marks in terms of defense. And that is why I'm giving Latos more of a 3-2 than, say, like a 2.95. Now are my season predictions: 16-10, 2.95 or 3.2 ERA, excuse me, and about 150, 175 strikeouts. Anyway, we'll move on now to the other high-end pitcher that they acquired. He's going to slot in number 3 in the rotation, right behind Latos, and that is Dallas Keuchel, a left-hander from the Houston Astros. Spent the last couple seasons with the Houston Astros, had sub-3 ERAs and a winning record each year. Now, this guy is definitely not going to wow you with any of his pitches. He throws a four-seamer, a cutter, a changeup, and a slider. The slider will not even reach the 80s, and the changeup is actually in the high 60s, low 70s, depending on how hard he pitches at any particular day. His four-seamer actually only reaches the mid to high 80s. 88 is where it really tops out, and the cutter will only go up to 86. So he's really absolutely not a velocity guy. But what you're getting out of Keuchel is a lot of ground balls, an absurd 65 ground ball rate, 65% ground ball rate last year in Houston, and then the year before it was also strong as well. So you're getting a lot of ground balls, and that is going to give the infield a lot of opportunity. You got a couple of pretty good defenders in the infield on any given day. If you got Urshela playing in the field, he's an unproven commodity, but he can still play pretty decent defense over at third base. And then obviously Francisco Lindor, even though he is still only in his second year in the MLB, and this will actually be his first full season if you want to be technical, he is one of the best fielding shortstops in MLB. And if Jason Kipnis decides he wants to play defense, he can play defense pretty well. It's just being consistent with his defense. So you're banking on the fact that your infield defense is going to perform when you get a guy like Keuchel. And also, Keuchel is the best fielding pitcher in Major League Baseball over the last 2 seasons with a dazzling 98 fielding percentage in, actually a pretty good amount of opportunities. I was surprised to see all the opportunities that he actually got at fielding. So you're getting a guy who's not going to provide you ace stuff. He's going to work counts. He's going to hit his spots when he needs to. He's going to induce ground balls. And he's not going to walk. He is one of the best in the league at avoiding walks with a 1.5 walks per 9 rate last year, even though his strikeout rate was 5.0 Ks per 9. So he's going to give you a good ratio, about a 5-to-2 ratio for strikeouts and walks, which is pretty good if you think about it that way, considering his low strikeout numbers. Over a full season, I wouldn't say you're going to get absolutely incredible numbers out of Dallas Keuchel. I'd say that his numbers are going to be here, and you can expect a full season out of him, unlike Latos. I made my projections for a full season of Latos, but you're guaranteed to not get a full season out of Latos. If we get a full season out of Latos, it's going to be surprising. If we get a full season out of Keuchel, though, I won't be surprised at all. This guy's not landed on the DL yet in his career. I predict he is going to start all 32 games. He's going to have a record somewhere in the 13-8 region with a sub-3 ERA just because of all the ground balls that he induces. The big question mark for the Indians' defense is in the outfield, and that's where someone like, Latos, I'm not really relying on him because he's going to give up all kinds of contact. Keuchel's ground ball rate is so ridiculously high that you are going to be able to expect a lot of balls to die in the infield. So, So, wrapping it up, Latos, these are over a full season projections. Again, you're not going to expect Latos to pitch a full season, as I've said several times. But I'm going to give him a 16-10 with a 3.2 and 150 to 175 strikeouts on the season. And Keuchel, I'm going to predict 13-8, and he's going to have a 2.95 ERA on the season with about 120 strikeouts. But the thing is, he's probably only going to walk maybe 30 people all season. So I'm going to say if that's what you're getting out of them, out of a starter, a number 3 starter, less than a walk per game, I think I would take that. Keichel's probably only going to make 31 starts this season as he's the number 3 starter, unless we move him up in the rotation due to an injury. So that wraps up this first edition of Indians Insider. A minor note, John Doss made the team over Roberto Perez as the backup catcher, and he will open on the opening day roster. We're not going to keep him down to save service time. He's not that spectacular of a player, at least not yet. And even if he is, he wouldn't be on the team if he was, because we have Yan Gomes as a cornerstone for the next few years. So that's pretty much all the notes that we have on the Indians Insider this episode. Next time you see an episode of Indians Franchise, it will be the opening day game against the Kansas City Royals. And the next time you see an episode of Indians Insider will be after the first month of the season, and there's a few episodes between now and then. The next episode of Indians Insider will be covering the first month's worth of statistics, as well as different moves that were made throughout the organization. So that's going to wrap this up for me. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoy, and we'll see you later.